Welcome back, everyone, to this episode of the Purpose Chasers podcast. I have a quick friend. What I mean by that is a quick friend. She's making faces on the other end of this Zoom. What I mean by that is I have a woman who I was introduced to. I don't even remember how I was introduced to her, honestly, because I don't keep a spreadsheet, which she may talk about on this episode. But I quickly had a heart connection with her, and we have been Zooming multiple times a week, and we have an Instagram conversation going. I don't think she's messaged me on LinkedIn yet. We have multiple Facebook conversations going. We have text conversations going, and also email conversations. We have a lot of activity going on. She just likes to troll me on all platforms.
Pretty much.
She's an amazing human. Miss Heather Parady is in the house. Super excited to have you. Thank you for coming. Can you give yourself a round of applause? I don't know why I said that.
A round of applause. That kind of sounds messed up.
That is not getting edited out. She is an epic human being. Heather, what do you have to say to the Purpose Chasers audience?
What do I have to say after that introduction? Well, I agree, Mark. I think we connected initially because we both said, hey, we have the therapy background, we do that. And immediately, I think within 5 minutes, we were in this super deep conversation about the purpose of life and impact and influence and all of that. We just went there off the bat. And so I think we vibed with each other because of that. I'm excited to connect with you on this show and see what we create.
So, Heather, what are you about? What are you doing in the world? Obviously, I know what you're doing because I have conversations going on with you on multiple different platforms. But what are you? My audience knows me. Why did you start Unconventional Leaders? I guess we'll start there. That's her podcast for those of you that are listening. That's really how we got connected, because I was really looking to go on podcasts to promote my book, but also not looking to go on just any podcast. I wanted to go on heart-centered individuals podcast. And that's how I got connected to Heather.
Why is such a good question, because honestly, I ask myself that a lot. Heather, what are you doing? Why are you doing all of the work that you do within the podcasting space and putting out content and a message in the online world? I believe in calling and following curiosity and intuition and all of that. And sometimes none of that makes sense. And so to give you a logical answer of why I'm doing what I'm doing, I don't know if I still can even answer that, but I've just felt this nudge to create something, to put out some good work into the world. I was in graduate school and running a small business on the side, and I really fell in love with the potential of the online space, of how people who can essentially come from, quote, nothing, can start putting out really impactful work with these tools. So I started experimenting with it a little bit in graduate school. And by the time that I got out and started just pursuing my work, I really wanted to follow what I was feeling called to, which was podcasting. And to be completely honest with you, I had to Google iTunes. How do you set up an iTunes account and all of that? I literally knew nothing. I'm not a tech girl or anything like that, but I knew you could talk into the microphone and share stories. So I did. That was a couple of years ago, and I've gone all in since then, 100%. I work fully for myself at home, and the intention of the show is to share the stories of people who have built things from the ground up, people who have come from nothing, people who have struggled and had a hard time and have flipped their story around and are doing impactful work. And again, that's where we connected, is this idea of not only being successful, not only saying, I built a 6-figure business, period, or I grew my Instagram to 1 million, period, but talking about something that's a little bit deeper and meaningful in the world. I really wanted to connect with those kind of leaders. And so that's what the show's about. It's changed my life. I don't know what tomorrow is going to look like, still learning and growing and trying to figure it out. I think as a lot of us in the online space are, but it's just been a wild, fun, awesome ride.
And for my audience and for the definition of this show, What was the moment or moments in which you came to chase your purpose, or what you refer to as your calling?
I've really had to, and I'm still working through it, but unlearn a lot of the beliefs that I have about myself and the way things are supposed to look, and also the insecurity and self-doubt. I was in graduate school, not just for me, but to prove something. I told this to you before, and I share it a lot about just coming from zero education. I think my education stopped around seventh or eighth grade, and I had a really bad complex around just my intelligence, my ability to provide value into this world, because I didn't have an education. Most people didn't even know that. I didn't even graduate with a high school diploma. And later on in life, when I decided to go ahead and go into college, it was like this rat race towards worth and value and approval of like proving that I could do this and that I could make it and that I was going to be successful and I was going to get a good job and I was going to do this and I was going to do that. And I ran across this guy named Alfred Adler in psychology, which is like my boo. I love him. He has, I mean, I think he's probably passed away by now, but
He's my
his
boo.
Alfred Adler is my boo. But you know, when you go into school, you learn about all these theorists and all these old men with beards sitting around trying to figure out why we do what we do. And I loved that. I loved those classes. But when I heard about Adler, I felt like he was reading my book, because his idea was that we're all born with this sense of inferiority, no matter what it may be, whether it's you grew up poor or you had a disability, or maybe you were born a woman and, you know, you got discriminated against because of that. Whatever it may be, we all feel a little less than. And so people work to strive to overcome that and overcompensate for that in different ways. And his thought was that instead of fighting that, of being like, no, I'm not going to have to prove, fighting that urge, instead lean into it and figure out how you can flip that into something that's good and purposeful and for societal good. And so within the context of myself, when I heard that, I thought, wow, Heather, that's what you've been doing for the past few years. You've really been working hard on getting this degree and trying to get out of because I grew up really poor as well, get out of that poverty and have a good career and all of that. And you're trying to overcompensate for that feeling you've grown up with. Instead of fighting it, why don't you think about how can I use what I'm working on towards societal good and put out good work into the world? And when I started thinking along those terms, I started thinking less about my quote career and thinking more about my gifts and the potential that I had to make a bigger influence in the world. And I know that sounds a little weird and strange, but through that came like media and this stinking microphone I'm on right now, and the interests I have and a lot of the stuff that you and I do with our lives right now. So just kind of took the leap, and it's been really scary. But yeah.
Well, for what it's worth, you're very, very good at what you do. And
here's $20 paying for
here's
that.
$20. Yeah, that's a plug. Alfred Adler's my boo. Who says
Put that on a quote card?
Yeah, I will. That'll be on a quote card to promote this episode. And it's not getting edited out. That's staying in there. I might even make a sound clip about it. Heather, your passion and your drive is something that I've met a lot of individuals in the 3+ years that I've been in this space, this quote, thought leader space, end quote. And there are not a lot of heart-centered individuals in this space. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of people chasing. We were just talking about it with Phoebe before we started recording this show. There's a lot of people that are chasing followers, that are chasing downloads, that are chasing dollars, that are doing all of that. And of course, we're in business for ourselves. So without money, we can't survive, right? And without followers, to some degree, we can't share the content that we want to with the world. But it's not your guiding force, right? So the money that I make, and could just give a live example. Like I'm having literally financially one of the best weeks I've had since I've been in business. I didn't go into this week with the intention of like, I'm going to make X amount of dollars. No, I'm just having a really good week and I'm like super fired up and I'm getting louder and louder. And when I get loud and I share a message of impact, dollar signs and everything else add up. Like that's what happens. And Heather, what is your experience with that? And what I mean by that is, what is your experience with getting caught in the chasing followers, chasing dollar signs, just getting caught in the shuffle, so to speak?
My experience with it, well, again, I think it goes back into that overcompensating thing. So this is something that's really interesting, and I've been trying to figure out and study, and I don't know if there is an answer to it, but when you come from kind of like a ground level place, whether you have 0 followers or $0, no education, whatever it may be that may make you feel like the underdog or unconventional or whatever, you can use that in 2 different ways. You can use that as this driving force where you're like, I'm going to use this for good and make me more passionate, make me more empathetic towards people, and et cetera, et cetera. Or you can use it as a driving force, which leads you to that overcompensating where you become like an asshole and that's all you care about, and et cetera. And so it's really interesting how you can have 2 different people essentially with the same backgrounds, and they're both chasing success. And one of the driving forces is this idea of like, I want to create good into the world. Of course, you want to make money. Of course, you want to do that. I'm not saying that, but when there's nothing of substance there, like, where does that come from? Is that something we're born with? Is that something that God gives us? Is it a calling? Is it something we can control? I don't know. It's been something I've been really interested in because I get nervous about that, Mark. I mean, I don't think I'm immune to it. I want to think that I am in this for the right reasons and that I'll always be. But it gets really hard. It gets hard when you think only about strategy and growth and all of that, and you can say all day long, oh, I'm about impact, I'm about this and I'm that, but are you? How do you keep yourself in check? How do you make sure that the main thing is the main thing, and yet still focus on growth? It's something I don't know the answer to. I think the spiritual practices that you and I talk about, at times, of just making sure those are a part of our daily routine are not just nice, but necessary. And then also too, keeping, I don't know if I'm answering your question or going left field. I'm just having a million thoughts about this topic, but keeping a really strong balance of the voices in your life of, I'm not just going to consume podcasts and teachings and stuff about how to make $1 million, but also to really connecting with and staying grounded in the kind of material of greater impact and purpose, kind of like the stuff that you put out, we have to have that because I think it's human tendency sometimes to just go into survival mode and competitive mode, which is cool because it can produce a lot of awesome work, but it can also destroy your life and honestly your calling too, and water down a lot of who you could have been.
A lot of who you could have been. It's just such a phenomenal line. I could rabbit hole and go on a tangent with that for sure.
Don't you think about that though? I think
Yeah.
about that all the time of like, in psychology, it's not human potential, but I think we think so one way towards that, where it's like we have like this cap of like who we can become and how great we can become. But I think that there are so many different paths and so many different becomings that we could pursue. And it's just a really interesting idea to me of like, I don't know, a greater calling, something that's really, really great.
It's amazing that you bring this topic up. I literally this morning posted a thought and a video in the Purpose Chasers community on Facebook. And if you're not a part of that group, you should join it. There's my plug, Heather smirking. And it's a scene from Fight Club. And it's the store clerk scene when Tyler goes into the convenience store and he pulls the man at the checkout counter out, puts him on his knees, takes his wallet out, finds out his address, puts a gun to the back of his head, and asks him. It's so drastic, but if you haven't seen this clip, you need to see it. Puts a gun to the back of this man's head, and essentially asks him the question, like, who could you become if you knew you were going to die? And it's like, to me, I just got goosebumps. It's like one of the most powerful movie scenes ever. And yet Fight Club is viewed as like this aggressive, kind of movie, but there's so many metaphors in that. In the man, in his wallet, when Tyler pulls his wallet from him, there's a community college card in his wallet. And Tyler goes, "What were you going to school for?" And he goes, "I don't know." He goes, "What do you mean you don't know?" And of course he has a gun to the back of his head. And he's like, "I don't know." And he's like, "What did you want to be?" "I wanted to study biology." "Why'd you want to study biology?" "I wanted to be a veterinarian." "So you like animals?" "Yes." And so Tyler, with the gun to the back of his head, says, "I'm going to give you 6 weeks to go pursue what you've been called to this earth to pursue, or I'm going to kill you." Right? So it's kind of this drastic, right? But when you think about it, most individuals, I'm going on a tangent. I know we're going to do part 2 of this episode, like part 2, Heather Parady, for those of you that are listening.
And Adler, my boo.
She's coming back on, the boo. Most individuals have to have, and myself included, have to have a gun to the back of their head before they chase purpose, before they step into who they could have become. And I think about it, I'm getting amped up right now. Like, I'm in prison. I'm getting released from prison. And of course, I'd been homeless for years. I'd done, at that time, 5 years incarcerated before. I was a raging drug addict, like all of these situations in my life in which you would think that I would have stopped and said, what can I become? But it's in this moment, 2 weeks before I'm about to be released from prison, where I stop and I say to myself, who could I become?
Yeah.
And then I remember reading a book by a man named David Peltzer called A Child Called It, in which he shares his story of adoption and his confusion. And I'm like, I want to share that with the world. I want to impact. And it all came through spiritual practice. And that's a lot of the foundation of Heather and I's relationship, is how you can't truly transform at the level that I'm out to transform without spiritual practices and without going deep. And I didn't know we were going to go here in this episode, but we are. And this is not a religious, I don't sway one religion or the other. And I've showed Heather this before. I have Christian tattoos on my arm and a Buddha on my arm. Like I'm literally like a coexist bumper sticker. So if you're listening, be like, "Oh, he's going to get all Jesus on me." No, I'm not. But Heather, I've shared this with my audience before, so I'm not going to share my experience. I would love you to share your experience. Like, how have your spiritual practices and your seeking of truth, how has it grown, and and I know this is a loaded question. Do you believe you would be where you are if you just went into just flew through the stream of society without actually seeking?
Ooh, all right. So short version is I spent years in ministry. And the intention of my life was to be that traditional Christian minister. I went to school to do that originally, traveled all over the US, doing ministry work. I mean, when I was 18, 19 years old, I was preaching on stages on Sunday morning at different churches. I mean, that was my intention with can you imagine that? And I got to a point, and it's another story, but where I came to the end of that. And I knew that there was something I could feel that there was the presence of something there. But then when religion kind of wasn't enough, I came to the end of myself, and I didn't know what to call it anymore. And I didn't know how to move with it anymore. I didn't want to deny that thing, but I was just done with religion. So I spent a couple of years just trying to figure things out, stop going to church, stop doing the traditional, which is absolutely crazy for somebody who literally gave their life to ministry. I had church keys to every church I've ever attended because the pastor would give it to me just because they're like, you're here so much, here are the keys. Like that's the level that I was at. But the past few years have been so rich for me because as I've stepped away into religion and really acknowledged that there's something bigger than the box that we all try to shove God, the universe, into, that really not only is he limitless, but also we become limitless. And the thing that I think is missing within church and the religion that I grew up in is this acknowledgement of this beautiful balance in the universe where we often only see this hardship, this negativity, this season without realizing that it's counterbalanced with something beautiful on the other end that was strategically placed there in our lives. And it's this masterpiece that we can't really navigate. And again, there's another sense of a balance of human effort and also intervention, where we work and we work and we work, and we have to be faithful with what's been given to us. But there comes a point in our lives where we come to the end of ourselves and the divine steps in and takes over. And I don't think he steps in and takes over until we come to that end of ourselves. So we can't just like lay on the couch, eat a sandwich and say, all right, divine, like move me over. Like, no, he's like, I've given you these tools and these resources, exhaust them, use them, be creative, follow intuition, like put your work out there, get fired up, say things, move, just like you were saying, like do the things. But then at the end, that's where, hey, this is where the real stuff begins. And so I've been exploring that intersection of self and something higher for the past couple of years and really working. And I'm not there, man. I have got so much to learn, but figuring out like, how do I stop labeling and trying to define something that I don't know if I was ever fully meant to understand.
I don't know if I was ever fully meant to understand. Man, this is literally one of the best conversations I've had in a minute on the Purpose Chasers podcast, for sure. And I think the thing that I want to highlight that's coming to me in hearing you share what you just shared is in the space that you and I are in, right? So I'm an author, a speaker, a podcaster, and I do a lot of coaching. I consider myself a thought leader that is thinking, which is a joke that Heather and I have. We believe the thought has been stripped from thought leader.
Amen.
So we just have a bunch of parrots. But the thing that's been really present for me that I just got, called to in hearing you share was I get so caught up in watching success, right? So what is success? And I've been on this like really thought, and I think a lot of it has to do with, little man, I'm about to have a baby, and like really thinking about it, like what is success? What is the definition that I want to teach my son? And like, what is success? Most individuals in society believe that success is a comparison as to I will be successful when I get to where Heather is, right? I will be successful when I get to where, Adler is, like your boo, just putting a joke out there, but I'll be successful when. And what I've found through spiritual practice and spiritual teachings and transformational works is that success is internal. Success isn't my bank account. Success isn't my stature online. It isn't the amount of clients I have. It isn't the amount of stages that I speak on. Success is this internal feeling, right? So really the identification of success you can't have at an intellectual level. And those that are intellectualizing the word success are doing nothing more than comparing themselves to an arrival point of of an individual that they follow. Right. And I've just really been giving that a lot of thought. And I am a thinker. I'm a deep thinker. Sometimes I've been told too deep, but I believe that in this life, we are called to thought. We are called to contemplation. We are called to meditation. We are called to prayer. Like whatever it is you believe in, it's in the silence that I find. And that is what, drew me to Heather. Heather, so knowing your story, your lack of education, and our stories are so aligned, although the circumstances are so different, right? It's like I am the first individual to get a master's degree from both of my families, my adopted family and my biological family. And why did I do it? Yeah, there was a piece of me that wanted to be the one, right? That wanted to change the mold, if you will. And I felt like I was called to it. It could have been ego. I'm not sure. Or it could have been this inadequacy. I'm not sure. But what I want to ask you is, isn't that okay?
Mm, mm.
If it serves, right? So, and I want to preface this before I let you go. And I know she has to go in a couple of minutes. So we're going to have to part two this. In the St. Francis prayer, which is one of my absolute no, it's the Thomas Merton prayer. It's like, and I'm going to preface this, right? So it's like, even though that I think that I'm doing God's will, I may not be, but I believe that the motive to do his will pleases him. Right? So in the thinking that you're doing the right thing and continuing to chase the shiny carrot, which you are, like, let's just be humble. I'm chasing things, right? Do you believe that the desire to, and we'll take God out of it for those that it makes you uncomfortable. Do you believe that the desire to serve the universe to God good is pleasing?
That goes back to my boo Adler when he said that we don't need to fight those urges. It's something that we need to think about. How can we keep ourselves grounded in the midst of those urges to make sure that this is focused on societal good? So I'm not fighting this. I'm not saying this or that. I'm leaning into, yes, this is our human tendency. I probably have a whole bunch of screwed up mess in the midst of it. I'll be the first to admit I have major mommy daddy issues, and I don't know if I'll ever get over them, and some stuff that happened. I mean, like, all of us do. When are we ever going to say, quote, I'm healed from this and I'm doing everything purely? Bullcrap. We don't ever really know some of that underlying stuff. And that's why it's so important to be connected with, you said you're not going to bring God into this. I'll bring it, like, God, the universe, connected to a higher source, because that is where we are grounded. And to your point of, the chase of success, I think that was the intention of our creation, was this chase, was this mystery. My husband and I are reading this book on relationships. We've been married 8 years. And one of the points in the book is that a lot of times intimacy is lost in marriage because the mystery is taken out of relationship. And the thing that makes you want to chase something is the mystery of it. It excites you. You don't know the answer. And when we try to put the answer on ourselves, put an answer on God, put an answer on our calling, and check all these boxes, we're taking the mystery out of this beautiful relationship that we're supposed to have with something bigger. And I don't know if we are ever meant to know all of this stuff. In fact, I think we're meant to settle into the unknowing and, like, get really comfortable with that and yearn after it and want more and always be in a state of seeking.
Purpose Chasers audience, that's where we're going to leave you. in the state of unknowing. And my promise to you is I'm going to get another booking with Heather, and we're going to do a part 2 of this episode in which I'm going to request that she time block 2 hours, and we're just going to have a conversation. She's like cringing right now.
I'm laughing.
And we're just going to have a conversation and continue it going. So in this space of unknowing, that's where I'm going to leave you. This is not a typical episode. I felt this when I asked Heather on my podcast. Like, she has a lot of work that I want to promote, which I'm going to allow her to plug her podcast, but she's not even going to. She won't even do it. It's going to be in the show notes of this episode, regardless of what she wants to do. But I want to start having deeper conversations with some individuals that I'm super heart connected to. And this is the first one. And so I want to get away from you come on my show, let's describe how you're a purpose chaser, promote all of your stuff. And we do a great interview and people have experiences. I want to start injecting deep thought into some of my episodes. And Heather, you're the first one. And Purpose Chasers audience, my people, you have to stay tuned for part 2. So Heather, thank you so much for coming on.
Honored. Thank you.
We're going to get this booked and we're going to go deeper on this, and we're going to pick up part 2 in the unknowing.
Awesome.